I'd like to call to order the November meeting of the Town of Morrisville Planning and Zoning Board and ask Rob to give us an invitation.
Father in heaven, we thank thee for wonderful fall weather we have. We thank thee for town staff and for our first responders. And we ask thee to bless them with safety. Give us an inspiration we need to do good for the town in these meetings and be thoughtful and make good decisions that we can recommend to our council and help shape planning and the things that we do for the future. And thank thee for all we've been given, and we say this in the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
Thank you, Rob. So we have an agenda before us. Any changes from staff side?
No, sir.
Changes from the board side? In that case, I'd like a motion to adopt the agenda.
Motion to adopt.
Have a second? Second. Motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion is carried. We're adopted the agenda. You all have a chance to review the minutes from October. Any changes or additions? Corrections? And a motion to approve the minutes from the 11th and the 15th.
I'll move that we approve the 11th and the 15th minutes.
Second? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Minutes are approved. Thank you. So now we're going to race ahead from item 4 all the way down to item 10. Harry, thank you.
All right, so this item is a major site plan for a development called Broadstone Trailside, and I guess we're scrolling. The applicant is Alliance Realty, and they're proposing a 263-unit multifamily development on a total of 15.49 net acres, and the property is located on the north side of McCrimmon Parkway between Town Hall Drive and Church Street, as you can see on the image. And the current zoning of the property is Neighborhood Activity Center, and then the northeast corner is zoned Conditional Neighborhood Activity Center. As I mentioned, this is a major site plan, which is an administrative request. So here you can see the zoning districts of the adjacent properties as well as the surrounding uses. You can also see of the subject site, which portion over here with the dots on it is the conditional zoning portion of the property. The development is going to take place in a total of 4 phases. There are not any floodplains on the site, but there are riparian stream buffers on the site as well as some wetlands. And the parcel has already been incorporated into town limits.
Just to interrupt you there. Tim's wife had a little bit of an emergency yesterday. They thought things were cleared up, but he's been on standby, so he's obviously gone to higher priority. So I don't know. I think it's maybe Catherine's turn to be the voting member.
Either works. You can be this time.
I think you were last time, if I remember.
That's fine. Yeah, she can.
Unusual.
Yeah, Catherine.
Thank you. So
We're
good.
Okay, sure. I'll get into some of the project-specific information now. Outlined in the table are the dimensional standards for this zoning district and for the property. So all of these standards have been met, including the setbacks, parking spaces, tree preservation, lot coverage. Next, I'll talk a little bit about some of the site itself. It's made up of 4 residential buildings, and the site has access proposed on Town Hall Drive over here, as well as McCrimmon Parkway. And it also provides cross-access to one of the parcels to the north by a connection from the parking lot. And then a cross-access waiver was submitted and approved for this parcel over here because of the wetlands on the site that would make it difficult to cross. And then the other adjacent parcel will receive access once this portion of Town Hall Drive is built out. And then as far as off-site road improvements, there'll be improvements along McCrimmon Parkway, including a change to this median to allow a left into the site. McCrimmon Parkway is also going to be widened to 2 lanes, and a 8-foot multi-use path is going to be installed on the north side of the road. On Town Hall Drive, there are some improvements that are occurring on the existing portion of Town Hall Drive, including sidewalk and an additional lane, including a left turn lane up here as you enter the other adjacent property. And then the applicant is proposing a payment in lieu for this portion of Town Hall Drive, the Town Hall Drive extension, due to the presence. You can see there's a wetland right in the middle of that path of the future road, and that requires Army Corps of Engineer approval, which they would not grant at this time until the entire road project was planned and completed. And so the applicant is requesting a payment in lieu, or proposing to provide a payment in lieu fee for the construction of that extension, which would include any of the associated improvements like the lighting, sidewalk, and the permitting associated with the wetland disturbance approval. And then on Church Street, a 5-foot wide sidewalk is also proposed to be installed, and some improvement to Church Street to allow additional stacking and right turn lane coming southbound on Church Street onto McCrimmon. Aside from the sidewalks and multi-use paths along the perimeter of the property, there's also a 5-foot wide sidewalk proposed throughout the development to provide connectivity within. There's a number of landscaping requirements that the UDO has, so street guard buffers, perimeter buffers along the other adjacent property lines, and landscaping throughout the development within the parking areas and along the foundations. There are 2 alternative landscape plan requests, one along the large power line easement here, which is simply just to plant the vegetation in an alternative configuration and location because of some space constraints with the greenway running parallel to the power line easement. And then also an alternative landscape plan for a small portion of the Town Hall Drive street yard due to this wetland and some drainage configuration that's going to be kind of a temporary condition until the extension of the road is put in, which would then allow that drainage pipe to be relocated and the vegetation to be put back in its kind of more traditional location. So for that request, there is a payment in lieu associated for a couple of trees that would be relocated in the future. So that is part of that request. And then as far as overhead utility lines, the applicant is proposing to bury the overhead utility lines along McCrimmon Parkway. And there's one pole proposed to stay on Church Street that the town engineer has granted a waiver to remain because it serves in a different property. There's lighting proposed for the development itself within the parking lot, and then also along McCrimmon Parkway, along Church Street, along the existing portion of Town Hall Drive, and then, as I mentioned, a payment in lieu for future lighting along the future extension of Town Hall Drive. And the developer is responsible for all of those installation costs. As I mentioned, there are four main buildings as part of this project. They are required to provide a range of different material variety, color variety, roof forms, building shapes. So I've put in the presentation here just the kind of front elevation of each building so you can get a general sense of what they will look like. Some of the other requirements related to the elevations for multifamily development, which are being met, are required balconies or patios and a certain amount of fenestration. So I'll just note the first building here, actually the ground floor is, or part of the ground floor is also acts as the clubhouse. The rest of the buildings are all entirely residential.
So building 1 is the only one that will have land uses other than residential in it?
Right, so it's just half of the first floor will be like the leasing office and some of the recreational facilities, and the pool is behind it. The other half of the first floor and the upper stories are all residential. So the uses within that first half floor are still all to serve this development.
Okay, so then, okay, I understand now.
Okay. The transportation impact analysis that was done for the development shows that there would be approximately 1,717 daily trips that would be generated from the development, with 133 peak morning trips and 163 peak evening trips. Here's again a summary of all of the road improvements that would be occurring as part of the project. There's a proposal for a payment in lieu of parkland dedication. As a reminder, our fee schedule does set a specific amount per multifamily residential unit, which is currently $2,147. So for the 263 units, that totals $563,609. The Shiloh Greenway runs through the site currently. As part of the project, it would need to be a good portion of it demolished during the construction of the project, but that would, of course, be put back in place as part of the project. That greenway does connect into the nearby Church Street Park. And then the development is also providing private amenities, as I mentioned, the clubhouse, a pool, and then also a dog park. And the dog park is proposed to be located within that 100-foot Duke Energy utility easement. Duke Energy has given preliminary approval on that, and they're simply just waiting for the town to approve the plans before giving their final approval. And then as far as the school impact, as a reminder, this is provided simply for informational purposes, but we estimate that there would be 78 students in the development, and based on the current draft school locations or assignments, they would be Parkside Elementary, Alston Ridge Middle, and Panther Creek High Schools. As an administrative request, we are looking to see if all of the UDO requirements are met, and staff believes that they are met, so we are recommending approval of the application with a couple of conditions. These are mainly kind of housekeeping tracking items in reality, but that would be payment in lieu for the Town Hall Drive extension, payment in lieu for the vegetation associated with the Town Hall Drive straight yard buffers. I mentioned payment in lieu for the Parkland payment in lieu, and as well as official approval from Duke Energy before we issue the first building permit. And just to kind of clarify, I know some of these conditions look a little bit duplicative, but some are that council authorizes the payment in lieu, and the second portion is that the payment in lieu is paid, if that makes sense. So today we are looking for Planning and Zoning Board's recommendation to the town council on this item. So you can recommend the application as submitted, recommend conditions necessary to meet UDO requirements, or recommend denial if you feel that it does not meet UDO requirements. And then when you are ready to make any motion, the resolution title is up here to be included in the motion. I'm available for any questions you might have at this time. The applicant team is here, the developer, engineer, and landscape architect. So if you have any questions for them or would like to hear from them, they are available as well.
Thank you. So let's start with questions for you.
Sure.
So on your slide where you had go back to your slide where you're showing the crosswalk.
The crosswalk, or just the overall site plan?
Right. I think that right next to the power line, that's the crosswalk, right?
Oh, here and
No,
here?
Yeah. Does that go all the way down there? If you keep going up, does that go down up all the way to that end of the boundary there?
So
Where does it stop?
the greenway?
Yeah.
The greenway will continue through to where it exists now.
Okay. So the greenway will actually pass through the property, is it?
Correct.
And they will build that greenway all the way going back.
Right.
On the Town Hall Drive, given that it's not going to connect to anything now, when do we think it will be extended?
I mean, at this time, I think it will probably have some impact based on when the transportation plan is adopted with the 147/not 147 extension. But based on the information that the Army Corps has provided, they would only give approval for wetland disturbance once a full plan from kind of start to finish for that road segment is established.
And to add to that, so current transportation plan draft shows Town Hall Drive extending all the way up to a new subdivision that's, I can't think of the name, subdivision, but it's on the very far
Mason
western
Farm
side.
Estates within Providence Place.
Correct, Mason Farm Estates. So it ultimately connect up to there. Council is tentatively, as part of their work session, we may actually get to Chapter 5. If we get to Chapter 5 next Tuesday, it starts at 5:30. If we get to Chapter 5, then we'll start talking about some of the connections that can come into play. You know, do you extend Cricket Patchway? You know, part of it, there's Stockton Gorge. You know, how do you connect that? Those are going to be part of that conversation to determine what connections we want to occur. And then, of course, you know, 147 is not at all in this area anymore. Yeah. We've identified it going directly to Davis Drive. Timing-wise, it's non-funded at this time, but that doesn't mean that there couldn't be a CIP project at some point in the future, or there couldn't be right-of-way acquisition at some point in the future. But because we didn't have all of the right-of-way secured and or project funded, the Corps was not going to allow them to drain or disturb really the wetland and do mitigation for it.
Okay, so I think where I was, as you know, I'm not a fan of payment in lieu, right? So what I was really trying to get to is if, as and when the properties behind it are built and, you know, the roadway would be connected, would it be left to the town to take care of the piece of property that needs to be, you know, the roadway that needs to be connected? or would we seek, whoever will be building the property behind to build the road, and the town would make the payment necessary for them? In other words, what I'm really trying to figure out, if it is left to the town to build that small patch of land, is it really worth it? Right? That's really what I'm trying to understand.
And it depends on how the property and how the entire area develops. So the land directly abutting where the road would stub into is actually Wake County. It's not actually Morrisville's jurisdiction. On RTP's plan, it's primarily kind of their green save area, but conversations with RTP, they are 100% in support of potential road connections, because one of their goals of their recently adopted plan is more connectivity to get people from the neighborhoods to their sites, which was a change from past plans. There is a particular piece that's actually landlocked, and the only way it will obtain access is through this. So I did grant a cross-access waiver, because once this is built, they will have direct access to the road. So in theory, if that parcel came through and something were to occur on it, the road would be extended by whoever that developer is.
Sure.
And then we would give, if it's us, say we purchase additional land hypothetically and expanded the park because the park's right up there, we would then be responsible for building it. Say a private developer came in, needed connection, private developer, we would give them the funds and they would be responsible for building it. It just depends on who's kind of the next along the line as to who receives the funds.
Okay. The numbers around the traffic things, the trips. If we are going to have 263 units, that 133 number just beats me. Because even if you say 1 car per residence, we are talking about apartments here. So most of them are going to go to work somewhere. So could you describe the discrepancy between 263 and 133?
And honestly, I don't review the transportation portion, so I can't really speak to that. I just took this from the analysis, and our transportation staff are not here. I don't know if anybody from the applicant's team, I know that the traffic engineer who conducted this study isn't here, but if any of you are able to speak to any of that, I can certainly look up the information that was provided if you give me a moment in the report and see if there's any further information that's within there.
It's a small window, right?
The general context, so you have an AM peak and a PM peak.
Understand.
So it's saying during the AM peak, and without looking at the study, I can't tell you definitively what the hours were. It's traditionally our peak hours here. They're saying that in the morning there will be 133. People tend to stagger when they leave, but everybody tends to leave at 5 o'clock. Or, when they leave their home. So that's why you typically see a difference in that. But they're saying out of all the units, that's how many that will occur during peak period. But if you look, it shows the additional number of trips.
Somebody who travels on that road every day, especially the intersection of McRimmon and Church Street, unless we make McRimmon 4 ways, Church Street, that intersection and the town hall intersection is just going to come down to it's just going to get overloaded. And if the only two are the exit, right? I guess in your drawing you're showing there will be a median on McRimmon. So anybody who is exiting out of town hall or out of the property,
End up in McCrimmon.
well, anybody who wants to go towards 54, right? I mean, you have only 2 places to go: Davis Drive, McCrimmon.
So we have the stoplight.
That's the stoplight, right? And right now, that road during the morning, 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. time frame is all blocked.
7:30 to 9:30.
But yeah,
It's
and
back all the way up.
plus there is a school nearby, so that's another area which kind of tends to block up. Right? So that's why I'm more concerned about how many exits could we actually provide out of here, right? Maybe one of the things to consider is, I don't know when an exit on Church Street is going to help in any shape or form. That's another.
There's not very much frontage on Church Street, so any driveway there would not meet the spacing requirement from the intersection. So that's why an entrance or exit is not provided on Church Street.
Before the meeting started earlier tonight, we actually were talking about, there was a meeting running simultaneously basic with ours. NCDOT was presenting the plans for McCrimmon widening. It's a funded project.
Okay.
And it is planned to be widened to 4 lanes, including the grade separation, all improvements along McCrimmon, as well as improvements at Davis. So it is a funded project that will be improved. I'm happy to send the plans. I'll send you a link to a share file so everybody can take a look at them. But I believe there's somebody that has also posted them through social media if you follow some of our elected officials. It's also posted there if you wanted to take a look, but I'll send it to the board.
But one of the things that might help in the short run is really if, I don't know who works this thing out, but between at least getting the street lights synchronized between right from McCrimmon to at the 54 junction, Church Street junction, Town Hall junction, if you can get those lights synchronized in a manner that you can manage the traffic in such a way that you don't have people blocking the roads. Because right now that's exactly what happens is Church Street, if you go in the morning, when the light turns green, there are cars lined up all the way. So it doesn't really matter whether we have a street light there or not. Nobody can move unless the traffic moves further, right? So it would be really nice if they can synchronize it and figure out how we could do things differently.
We're actually, I'm pulling up the details now, but we're actually in the process of funding a study. It's a collaborative study, and I'll give you a few details if you just give me 1 minute to pull up the details of looking at synchronization of some of the signals. So we have some that are currently synchronized by one entity. We have some that are synchronized by another entity, and it has a lot to do with the fact that we do have state roads, a fair amount, and we also have interstates. And so there's a study, but give me 1 minute. I will tell you the details of it, and because we're looking into addressing that very thing.
Okay. You go ahead.
Well, go ahead.
So the planned completion date on something like this would be next year, end of next year sometime?
As far as the construction of the project,
If it started as soon as it could, I mean, we're talking about soonest date being end of next year?
oh,
If you'd like to come to the podium, that way we can record you, and thank you.
So our
Come to the microphone.
We're streaming, so.
Okay. Matt Murphy with Alliance Residential, by the way. So we are planning to submit building permits first of next year. And if everything goes smoothly with that process, we are looking to start construction April, May-ish. And then that would put a completion about fourth quarter, late third quarter of, 2020.
Okay.
So we're a good about 2 years before the construction project is completely done. It's about an 18-month start to finish.
And the widening project, Courtney, the expected date on that?
I'll have to look the exact date. I don't know that one off the top of my head either.
I think they were planning to do that in 2021.
I had 2022 in my head. So is it a 2021, 2023 probably build out?
I think that's probably the construction start.
Starts, which will be about a year, 2 years.
U 5747, as they called it.
I'll double check, but it's typically a 2-year build.
Just curious how they lined up. Okay.
But we've got a wonderful couple of years coming up because road improvements for years, and they're all going to happen all at once. So
Which means
stay at
everything will
home
be
for
under
a couple of
construction
years.
for a few years. That's awesome. So looking at the access, you mentioned there's a site on the north side that will now be landlocked. Where's that site?
it's this piece. So this is the cross-access connection that this development will be providing, and it's kind of this odd-shaped
That small
piece
parcel.
here. Well, it comes out this way up and then does another little zigzag. That this is just a construction easement here. So it's, maybe I'll go to the map. It's the green piece.
Okay, the green one, okay. And that's not the same owner as the one north of that?
No, we actually own that property. The town owns
Town
that
does.
property.
The town does?
Yeah, the town owns the green piece. The light yellow pieces are owned. We actually own the little sliver one in the middle, but this one and these two are owned by different people.
Okay. But they'll have the access, so if they want to build, they'll just build it connected to this parcel.
Right.
That's my only other question.
Actually don't have any questions for Carrie because I tortured her with emails since last Friday. But I do have a question for the developer.
And while he walks to the podium, to answer your question, it is a 2021-2023 build. And we are currently participating in a regional intelligent transportation system, ITS study. And that is with Campo as well as NCDOT. And there is funding for developing the system is actually in the STIP, and it's combined with and it could end up as either a Morrisville-only system, kind of an NCDOT system only, a carry system only, or some hybrid thereof. So studying what's the best approach, and then in funding that approach is kind of what we're currently working on.
This is sort of a small question, and I know that you don't have to do this, it's not required. You've got some nice amenities. You've got a club, fitness center, pool. But I was just wondering if you're expecting more dogs and children in that development, because you've got a dog park, but I didn't see anything that resembled a playground.
So the dog park seems to be a very popular amenity among apartment dwellers. Most of our residents are either right out of college, young professionals, or people that have recent empty nesters. So they're not likely to have kids. I think in the past we were adding more playgrounds to projects, but those have been since replaced with dog parks because everybody loves their dogs, right?
Interesting. I guess they could always go to Church Street Park and use a playground there.
Yeah, I was going to say it's actually very close, especially with the Greenway connection leading right into the park.
Just thought I'd ask.
I guess the questions I have, this is administrative approval, so this may not even matter. I guess my big frustration with these types of projects is the road improvements always come at the end. Everyone deals with all of the issues with it, and then the road comes at the end. I mean, Wait Tech, are they finished with their road? I don't know. But, is there any timeline on when the road improvements are going to be done? I guess they're going to be done at the end, I'm assuming.
No, and that is strictly from a site sequence issue more so. And for this project, we are actually earmarking for all of the off-site improvements to start sometime next year about this time, because we have some overhead lines that have to be buried. So with sequencing in that sense, we have to have the area final grade for those overhead lines to go underground. Okay. So we're going to...
So potentially maybe not at the very end.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And I guess with the Greenway, that's a pretty heavily used Greenway, I think. That's going to be closed for the entire duration of the project, I'm assuming.
It will be closed for a portion. We've tried to phase the project so that building 1 is our first building to turn, okay, which is right near the Greenway. So we're...
because that's going to have your work cut out for your guys building the site too, just because people, how people are, they're going to try to walk that anyway, whether it's closed or not. But
So if you look at the site plan, building 1, that's the first building to turn, with building 2 right after, and then we're going to move eastward towards and hit buildings 3 and then 4. So the greenway is on the west end, and that should alleviate some concerns with it being shut down for most of the time.
My name is Rick Slater. I'm the engineer. I'd also just point out that more often than not with these developments, with this project, we have the benefit of the buildings being on the east side and the greenway and parking being on the west side. So in all reality, what comes first is the infrastructure, the roads, the utilities,
Right.
curb and gutter, that sort of thing. So Matt can correct me if I'm wrong, but it would seem to logic that the roads will be built, the greenway connections around the roads, the crosswalks, will be completed, and then he and his team can likely open the greenway up. And again, the small portion of greenway that crosses a parking lot or a road, all 25 feet, shouldn't take too long
Right.
to actually construct. So I think normally I would agree that winding through buildings, it might delay and go on and on until the site improvements were made so that you didn't destroy it once you built it. But I think in this case, we have the benefit of having it on the kind of separated.
Okay, I mean, if I was building this, I would want to put a fence around the whole thing.
Yeah.
And my safety guys would make me put a fence around the whole thing. And then I'd have all my guys parking on that side because it's very conveniently away from where all the buildings are. So, I mean, I think the reality of building something doesn't necessarily agree with what you're saying there, because I have a feeling that these 2 curved little parking lots can be full of construction vehicles.
I'm not
basically
discounting.
day 1 till day whatever.
Understood, and I'm not discounting that they may or may not park there. I'm saying more the construction aspect of it and the ability to open it won't be a several month duration, I guess is my point. And then just to speak to your question about the roadways coming in, again, a lot of times they don't want the construction traffic traveling over the improvements that were just made, which is kind of one of the reasons. And again, I'm not trying to argue or say anything incorrect, but that's kind of what we see on the design side of things.
So just so that if I read between your lines, are you saying that so in the initial part, the entrance to get to building 1 will be through town hall, or you'll be building the Macrimon part first? Which entrance, let me ask you that, are you planning to build first into the property?
So Matt can tell me otherwise because their construction team obviously has a means and methods to construction. But what I would expect to see is due to the fact that the BMP facility and our erosion control facility will again be on the west side of the project because it's the low side of the project, they likely will go open up that side of the project first, make those improvements, that being the parking lots, the greenway, the grading, the pond, and then move from west to east. So my guess would be that we likely build the entrance off of Town Hall Drive first for construction access. But again, his construction team, their means and methods may be a little different from that, but that's what I think is reasonable to expect.
I mean, look at the Wegmans, for example, right now. The whole thing got cleared, right? So you expect the whole thing will be cleared in mud, for a matter of weeks, right?
More.
And then the whole completion of all the roads and parking lots will be built in one swoop, right? Maybe for another couple of weeks, maybe a couple of days. I don't know how long that takes. But I guess the real question is, once those improvements are finished and the trail is finished, is there some way for us to get the fencing and the protection of the construction to be not inclusive of the trail and allow the construction parking to happen as much as possible in the eastern section of the parking lot and storage of things in the eastern section of the parking lot, making that a safe trail access for the 2 years that we're under construction?
I don't think that's an unreasonable request. Again, his construction team, I can't speak to their means and methods, but there is, to your point.
That's a matter of logistics, I think,
Right.
after the construction of the improvements, not so much the construction itself.
So the first thing that'll happen is you'll open up your sediment basin. You got to start with your erosion control, and you got to be able to control that runoff in the sediment. So all of that is located on the west side near the BMP, as you can see there. So they'll open up that first, and then to your point, they will start clearing the site and then follow through with the road. So again, whether they park on the east, west, or otherwise, I can't speak to that point. In all, like to be 100%
I believe you get our gist, right? What we are really talking about is two things. We want to limit the interruption to the flow of traffic on McCrimmon Parkway as much as possible. Keep it to a bare minimum, with street closures and others. That is going to be a nightmare. So we want that to be minimum, and the other part being, keep the access through Greenway going for as long as we can, and keep that duration to as small as possible.
Yeah, and I totally appreciate that. Being the design engineer, I don't have the construction experience to be able to give you the confidence that, yeah, we absolutely will go park on the east side and open up the crosswalks as soon as they're paved or otherwise. But again, what I'm trying to convey is what I would expect to see from the development and the construction sequence. Matt and his team, they have their own construction department that I'm sure they'd be happy to answer those questions or provide those answers to you.
Yeah, from a logistics standpoint, there really would not be any reason for us to be on the west side of the Greenway. The only thing that I know that we were going to put on that side is our construction trailer. So that would be our temporary trailer for our construction team to work out of. But all of the parking could easily occur on the east side of the Greenway in front of the buildings. It's actually easier for our subs to access, so they don't have to walk back and forth to their trucks. So that's absolutely a reasonable request.
Pulling up the phasing plan now, so that I think that will help with the conversation. Sorry, that's what I've been looking for. Help with the discussion. Understanding a couple of things when it comes to phasing is everything within that phase has to be in place prior to the issuance of CO. And in many instances, depending on the number of units, we do require more than one public access. So you'll find that certain entrances have to be open, at least for fire. Don't necessarily have to be open for the public, but they have to be open for the fire. 9 times out of 10, if not higher, we typically see that it's asphalted curb gutter. Occasionally, we'll see an all-weather surface. But Carrie can kind of go over the phasing plan. I think that will help illustrate what they're doing when in different phases. So they can start constructing into the next phase, but we won't issue COs only by phase. That doesn't prohibit phase 1, 2, and 3 going together, but just kind of a little bit of a background on how we'll start issuing COs for the project.
I guess, how much more storage is going to be on the church? Turn lane?
How much more? Storage.
I was looking at the plans like yesterday, it just seemed like it's kind of just shifting over what we had there. I mean, it's bad because of the way the other piece of property comes in, so I know you can't do much. But
I can give you an idea. I believe the queue for that turn lane is about 100 feet.
that's pretty much about what it is now. Yeah. It just looks like there's like a bike lane, I guess, kind of, it splits out around the bike lane.
With these improvements, I do believe we have a bike lane and turn lane rather than what's out there.
Which will help, that's good for people, if you're on a bike, 'cause that is a tight spot.
My son doesn't like this dirt trail. It's beautiful, but it's got too many hills, and you'd rather go up Church Street.
And unfortunately, fortunately or unfortunately, however you want to look at it, we aren't introducing any trips to church per se coming in the southern direction. So the TIA, as you I'm sure can imagine, didn't put emphasis on that southern movement. I didn't do the TIA, but with the limited TIA background I have, again, we didn't introduce traffic to the southbound movement, so it didn't really.
Well, I mean, again, you could have done much anyway because you don't have any more property. So
Right.
that's all I've got.
Yeah, Catherine.
I have several questions. The first question I had, or comment, when I was reading the briefing sheet, I know that we require no more than 65% total coverage of hardscape. And when I read off 27% or 30%.
I think it was maybe about 39%.
It was significantly under that. And then when I started looking at the plans, these buildings are going to have parking lot. I mean, I guess this is a parking lot between building 3 and building 4. And I'm wondering, other than the power right away, and then what you're going to be using for your storm maintenance and maintaining of the wetlands required by law, I don't see a lot of green space out and around these buildings or between the buildings. And so I understand constraints of the property. And then the other thing that stuck out to me is, okay, they're 4-story buildings. I'm okay with that. Although it looks like we're getting close to the 50-foot height requirement, as I understand it. But this parking takes up a lot of space, and it should. But were considerations thought to put in either ground level parking underneath the building, right at ground level with, one layer, or to do underground parking to either make it such that residents may not have to walk so far away to get to their building, or hopefully they have assigned parking place maybe, but also to kind of increase the green space between buildings. Because a lot of times we've seen compacted site plans, and I think that's good, especially for this neighborhood activity center. But it's where the train is going to be this side towards Chapel Hill Road. That's all building and parking places. And if we had this small area McCrimmon plan that somebody may one day, maybe my lifetime, maybe not, build, I don't see, even as coming in before that, I know there's financial and probably town building requirements on putting parking either underneath, down a level or at ground level to cut back on some of the parking lot volume on the space, or in the parking lot areas, such that maybe there could be a little more green area between buildings, or the lot between building 3 and building 4. I think this is a lot up here. Maybe that one could get eliminated because, and I'm sure you've got very good reasons for it being there. And so I'm seeing, yes, the parking lot will have trees and shrubberies and all that, and there'll be shrubberies around in the front and everything. But if I'm walking, say, along the sidewalk and in behind building 4, building 3, maybe to go up to building 2, I'm seeing, it's a sea of parking lot and not a lot of green. And so I know our soil is not conducive for this, but I think also this is a town restriction we've got going in. At some point, I would like to see more open discussion about the possibility of granting some ease heights to get parking underground to conserve green space and or moreover to preserve the porosity, the ground space with the porosity and permeability, so we can get it run down in instead of washed out and have to have big stormwater ponds to deal with it. And that's not, other than, we talked about it and it was going to be prohibitively expensive, so we left it off, and this meets the plans.
But I'll just let you know that originally, if you look just the west, the Duke easement, the Duke power easement, we had originally had, several iterations of the layout that had building and parking, particularly at the corner of Town Hall Drive and McCrimmon,
right.
For visibility
because that's
and stuff like that. Unfortunately, there is wetlands through there, and we could not impact more than 4 acres, I believe, without getting into a nationwide permit.
Oh, no, you don't want to do that.
Was that?
Oh, no.
Oh, an individual permit, all right. We were under the nationwide, we would have been tripped into the individual permit, which would make the project not feasible.
Right.
And then same sort of issue on the north and west side of the Duke easement. We have our BMP there, it's the low side of the site. We can't obviously
Right.
put a BMP on the high side.
No, I understand that.
So I just want you to know or give you some comfort that we didn't blindly go in there and say, we're going to
Oh,
leave the
no, I
west
wouldn't
side.
expect the least.
Yeah.
You've been here before. You know how it works.
So to your question, I mean, we did try to mitigate or provide as much green space, open space, and quality project. I know from Matt's perspective, he wants people to come live there. You know, he wants a good product. He wants to be, you know, not only make money, but also be a part of the town and make it a good experience for everybody. So we didn't come into this blindly saying, let's put everything on the east and make it every square inch impervious. Unfortunately, due to both tenant parking requirements and town parking requirements, and as you alluded to, height restrictions and the density needed to make it feasible for Matt and his ownership team, there isn't a whole lot of leeway to go under the building, podium parking, or something of that nature. So Matt can speak more to it if he'd like, but that's kind of how we came to what you're seeing here now. It was an iterative process, and we are trying to provide a quality project, not only from Heritage's perspective, but I know from McAdams' perspective, we want to be known for trying to do well by everybody. So
Sure. And you can't please everybody.
And I'll just add that one of the parking orientation requirements in the Neighborhood Activity Center District really does aim to kind of screen the parking with the buildings, bring the buildings up to the street, parking behind. And the zoning district actually does allow one bay of parking in the front. So I think that they did an excellent job trying to really kind of be true to that vision and even put all of it behind. So while there, still is all surface parking, it does have limited visibility from the streets.
Can you remind me of our parking requirements for?
It's 1 for 1 bedroom, 1.5 for 2 bedrooms, and 2 for 3 bedrooms. And then there's also some additional parking for the pool and mailboxes.
I was talking to my aunt in Houston, and it's half a car per unit, not bedrooms, units. Okay, I understand what you're telling me, and I understand what's going on, but I had to at least bring up maybe even the first layer. That was something we did see further north many years ago on Church. It might be nice, and it's a nice, and think about it when you've got a few extra dollars at the end of your construction, at the corner of McCrimmon and Church, to have a nice, it doesn't have to match the Town Hall Commons sign that's already up there. But, to have something that says you're now in the Town Hall, the Town Hall Commons area, or you're in Brexite, or welcome to Morrisville, or if we have the train center over there, something that you can use that's not too big at both. That corner already has one.
Yeah, I think for residential developments, the sign code, at least as it stands today, does say you're limited to 1 sign per entrance into the development. So I think they've kind of tentatively identified 1 ground sign at this driveway, 1 sign at that driveway. So at least the way the sign code is written, it is kind of focusing the signage at the entrances to the development rather than corners.
So that's Town Hall Drive there on the southwest corner?
yeah, the north-south street.
And McCrimmon, actually McCrimmon and Town Hall. That's got a Town Hall Common sign. All right. The protected areas in the wetlands with the tree preservation area, and then like the stormwater management facility, it looks like there's some more wetlands in there. do you think it might be feasible to take your walking path that's, will tell people they can go so far around it for a mile or something that would maybe up and around the stormwater? Or is it on a slope and significantly vegetated enough that it's really not even worth trying to put a path there, like, say, Grace Park? Okay.
So there is a 10-foot wide top of bank along the dam side of the BMP, but to your point exactly, on the right-of-way side, so the west side of the BMP, it is a substantial slope, both in the existing condition and any future proposed design of Town Hall Drive.
Sure.
So particularly on the west side, it would be very difficult to get a walking path.
Sure,
in
I
there.
understand.
And then on the east side, you could essentially walk on the top of the dam, but I don't think, I'm not a...
No, we shouldn't be walking on
engineer,
the top.
but,
The dam is up here or here?
it is on the east side. It basically runs along the east side of the entire BMP. So yeah, on the
No,
north.
that's the west.
Yep, there you go.
This is the dam.
The dam, yep.
Into the property, yeah, okay.
So there's the dam on the east side, the pond, it holds up the pond essentially, and as soon as you come on the west side of the normal pool, I'll call it, of the pond, you basically come back up to Town Hall Drive.
Yeah. Do you figure this is gonna be a dry pond or a wet pond?
It'll be a wet pond.
Percolating?
We don't have a fountain in our design, but that's not to say in the future.
Percolating, avoid mosquitoes.
Yeah.
I could get rid of the snakes. Okay. And then, so in that sense, I like what you've done with it. I like the addition of the dog park. It would be nice, ultimately, with one of our own parks extensions, to get a citywide dog park, but don't worry, I'm not going to take my dad's dogs up there and try and sneak in. So these are all going to be apartment rentals? Okay.
Yes.
And because it looks like a couple of the units maybe had stairs inside, or maybe that was just...
Yeah, so we will have 9 units that are going to be townhomes. They're going to be about 1,700 square feet, 2-bedroom, 2.5 bath, with a den and a dining room. So we are kind of catering to the families that are looking to locate to the area.
Right. And yeah, I saw those with the 2, and then it looks like beyond that you're going to have 1, 2, and 3 bedroom.
That's right. No studios, just 1, 2, 3, and 2, 2.5, which is the townhome.
All right. So yeah, and my other question, Courtney, I'm going to make a gross assumption that the length of the building with the different, how we said you can only go so long on the building before it. Is that
Yeah,
an
it's for
industrial
commercial
building or
properties.
townhouse?
It's for commercial properties, so we have new multifamily development requirements for design, which isn't applicable. Instead, there's, I think, to kind of get at that same idea, there are some balcony requirements that kind of allows for that projection, and those do need to be of a certain size or a certain projection inwards or outwards.
Sure. And do you think you'll be calling yourself Broadstone Trail at Town Hall Commons? Or?
So our name right now is Broadstone Trailside. So at Alliance, we have our premier brand is Broadstone. So we have our top-of-the-line projects that are in downtown LA, Atlanta, San Diego, that all carry that Broadstone name.
Okay.
So we feel like this project hits the same nodes that those do, where they're great amenities, fantastic finishes inside the apartments to feel like a real house. So that's why we tagged the Broadstone name. So if you see a Broadstone, it's an Alliance project.
Okay. Well, and I was just thinking more is if this is kind of a later property addition to Town Hall Commons, if this is going to kind of fall in the Town Hall Commons neighborhood, or if you're going to try to be your own neighborhood, or if you're going to try maybe tie in with this hypothetical the Crimin area plan. I say hypothetical.
I can kind of, if you don't mind if I chime in. So I think you're referring to the initial Town Hall Commons master plan. When we adopted the UDO, it really is no more as a general rule. Now, whether or not the property owner selling it is going to put deed restrictions that are going to require their sign to use that same tan stone that's out there that you see consistent with all the developments going on, that's really a private deed restriction type item. We won't enforce it, but the only master project that kept all those original conditions when we moved to the old zoning code to the new code was Park West. So there aren't all the restrictions that were historically in place, primarily because all the road improvements have been installed for Town Hall Commons.
All right. So, yes, I hope that your plan will come together as, do you have any colored elevation mock-ups?
We have colored elevations, they're just not in the
packet?
plans.
Okay, I was just, they help with visualization. So yeah, I think that it looks like a pretty good project, and living very close to this particular area, it will be one that I will be glad to have in my neighborhood.
Thanks, Catherine. So, Kerry, can you confirm for me that the road improvements they're going to be doing on McCrimmon, are they going to meet all the requirements or the standards that are set in the DOT project that we're just learning about, which is that 4757? So will they be doing all the widening for DOT?
I'm not familiar with that project to be able to know what the cross-section identified in that project is versus what's identified in the transportation plan. Courtney, I don't know if you happen to know the scope of that project and how it compares.
Look it up. I glanced at it, but I didn't study in detail, but I can get the answer.
I will say that the designer for the roadway improvements has contacted us, and we have shared our files with them. Right. So they have them, one way or another.
Right. It doesn't look crazily different based on the little picture that I saw, but. Okay.
Next question for Carrie. In your presentation, you said maybe 78 students.
Mm-hmm.
I know we've been through this a few times recently with apartments. Are you using the latest formula?
Correct. So the latest calculation that we've received from Wake County and their consultants has been reevaluated based on Morrisville specific data, and it's based off of development density. It takes no input or consideration for the type of development, whether it's single family or multifamily, and it doesn't distinguish between how many are elementary school, how many are middle school, how many are high school. It just simply outputs a number. So we just got this calculator, I think, in the summertime, sometime earlier this year. So it is new, but it's taken data from historical data, not just recent projects that they've come up with this calculation.
Because I know what we're finding is that there are more children in apartments than anybody ever thought there would be, partly because of the growth in the area and the difficulty of finding affordable housing and so on. So I'm glad you used the latest numbers. The greenway that goes through the parking lot, what what special striping or how are you going to make sure that people are not at too great a risk as they cross that internal roadway?
Shows stamped concrete.
Yeah, sorry, this isn't the best picture, but
I may have missed that. I saw stamped concrete or something for the sidewalks on the roadways, but I wasn't sure I saw
It
that.
says stamped asphalt for the internal stuff, and then the greenway shows stamped concrete.
Great.
And also just know that there is signage as well to
Okay.
basically say, hey, Greenway, whether it's Greenway ahead or Greenway crossing, and indications of such so that there is some awareness to what in particular those two crossings are.
Super, thank you. The roof, most of the roof seems to be asphalt shingles, but I know there's a little, one of the pieces in the package talks about metal roof. Those just the trim pieces and the odd bits, or?
and I don't know if it's quite as apparent on the particular elevations here, but I know that it's, so here, with the kind of, I know it's hard to see, but with the kind of striped area, that portion of the roof, so kind of the caps at the, where the L's come in, if I'm remembering correctly, kind of at the entrances where the two pieces come together, I think that's this portion of the roof that will also be metal, and then in addition, as you said, to kind of some accent areas.
And what color will that metal be?
Did I put it in?
It'll be a darker color metal, black or a gray.
No, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, but there are some incredibly glaring blue roofs in Morrisville that just,
It won't be
anyway,
blue.
Okay, here's a picture of the metal.
okay. So,
Did I, forgive me, see that the balcony on one of the pictures that you had scrolled down from, scroll up a page or two?
Do you remember which building?
All right, so in the middle, all right, so in this one, there's a metal canopy down on the bottom. If you go start it now.
Sorry.
That building will do it too. All right, so 7, 8, the windows are going to be 6, 0 on the floor, on the ground floor. Is that correct?
Yeah, 9 by 6.
They're going to be much taller. And then the decks, which I think was in one of the, is it the deck? I thought I saw, oh, that's just the window without a deck. So the decks will all have the height of where the deck stops all the way down to the ground is going to be more than 6, 8.
I'm not sure if that specific
How
dimension
tall
is called
ceilings
out.
are you planning for each of these flats?
They're all going to be 9 feet.
All right. Okay. I saw 6 foot and 6, 8, and going husband's 7, 6 foot 7.
I have one more question perhaps for the developer, and it's the usual unfair question. It shouldn't be part of this, but where else have you built something like this in the triangle?
So Alliance is fairly new to the North Carolina market. We opened up our office 2 years ago. However, everybody that is part of the team, there's a total of 5 of us that are all actually native North Carolinians. I'm originally from Charlotte. Got a guy originally from Pinehurst and then one from Raleigh area. But in this market in particular, if you're looking to drive by something and take a look at it, we don't have anything yet. So the closest project that we have coming out of the ground right now is in downtown Durham. It's adjacent to the Tobacco Road campus, right off of 147.
And otherwise, we have to go to LA or somewhere.
Or Atlanta, if you want to go, or Charlotte. Soon.
What's the name of the one?
The one in Durham is Broadstone Durham. And then we have another one, we have 2 more in Charlotte.
Is that the one that's already in construction you can see from 147
Yes,
already? Okay.
yeah.
I've seen it. Okay. Just a curious question. I mean, did you guys evaluate to the point about the underground parking? Did you evaluate how tall or what kind of density you would need to be able to be allowable to develop if you were to do that kind of a project?
Yes, so we go to exhaustive efforts to learn about our potential resident, the market. We do a lot of research on the rents, what everybody else is charging. And, it's not so much a affordability issue here. It's more of the demographics of the renter. So somebody that's looking to come to this area isn't really interested in living in that urban setting. And what you get with that urban setting is a parking garage that you've got to wind your way through. They're more inclined to have their apartment walkable right off of out of their car, flat surface. They're not going up or down parking garages. So that, coupled with some of the site constraints, some of the UDO requirements, led us down to this path.
Okay. I'm just curious, if we look down the road at density and the ability to put more in spaces and areas where we have the demand and we want more walkability, from a developer perspective, what does that look like? Like if we had 80 feet instead of 50 feet, would that have made it more attractive to do that, for example, just out of curiosity?
It depends on location, obviously. But it also does come down to the demographics. Who do you expect to live in this? And the people that like to live in the urban setting, they want those amenities that come along with it. So the coffee shop they can walk to, the pizza place, they can walk to work. So they're parking their car and choosing to walk to everything versus the person that lives here chooses to be in this location, one, because of either schools or affordability, but they're willing to offset that walkable experience by driving.
Well, that's a bigger problem for a town like Morrisville, which is running out of space. So I did, sorry, Peter, you had.
Well, I think we can open it up to others. Go ahead, Sanjay.
Sorry, I had 2 more questions. Maybe, Carrie, this is one question for you first. So if I see if I'm traveling from Town Hall Drive to Church Street, there is a left turn route it's probably shown on that picture there. My question is that I guess, do we really need that? Because I'm trying to think, if you go back, maybe go to one of your main pictures. Yeah, right there. So you see that come down. Stay there on that picture. Get your cursor in between.
Oops, sorry, that's difficult.
Stay there. Just take your cursor up. Yep. You see that left turn into the...
Yeah, from the median.
Is that a requirement or is that something nice to have?
I do not know the answer to that. I'm not sure if you know if that was something that the TIA identified or if that was a desire just to provide greater access in.
It's a little combination of both. Right now, there's one site access off of Town Hall Drive if this one is not present, which kind of drives the entrance on McCrimmon one way or another. But then, being that that's your front door, basically, having a right in, right out there also does not provide the ability to get in and out of the site that would be needed for a project such as this. So we wanted to have as much ability to enter the site, which did drive the need. And I'm not exactly sure what the TIA outlines specifically for this movement, but that's essentially the reason behind the left turn, is to get people coming east or from west to east along McCrimmon Drive the ability to get into the development.
See, if I heard correctly, McCrimmon is going to be a 4-lane road, right? 2 lanes on each side. If that's the case, I suppose there will be a median in between, as opposed to having a something that has to cross 2 lanes, right? So that's where my question comes from is, if ultimately it is going to be a 4-lane road with a median in between, what's the value of that left turn? Because it's going to block traffic.
Well,
At least people are going to try and come in through this way while they can come in through the town hall.
yeah, but the median is designed specifically for this left turn. There's a break in it.
No, I'm not talking about this one. I'm saying
Okay.
as and when you get to 4-lane, right, there will learn that this left turn would not be supported.
You go
Correct.
during a break of the light. I mean, the light, there'll be gaps in traffic there. I mean, I'm not saying it will be, people may want to go around the other way anyway, but there'll be gaps in traffic.
We're also showing 4 lanes being designed right now. So there's 2 lanes in either direction in addition to this leftover movement. And the leftover movement it does reside within the space a median would typically occupy. So I don't know if your question is, can we put a median there versus not put a median there, but there is in fact de facto a median space.
No. What I was trying to avoid that left turn in totality.
It's very similar to the neighborhood to the south. And
Yes,
same
and
thing. So
I experienced that because of that. There is always confusion about. It creates a distraction for the drivers going in, and that's why I was trying to say: is that something required, or is it an optional, nice to have?
There's
Right.
a couple of things actually at play here. So the spacing wise between town hall and church prohibits full access. So you can't, currently in the Berkshires, you can take a right when you exit their site. So you can only take a right there. So they're proposing a leftover. What I've pulled up is actually the full design for the road plans that are in place right now. They're tentative, they're subject to change, but this is primarily the direction that it's headed. And so it's including the leftover there as well. You do need 2 ways in for a public safety purpose due to the number of units. So while it's not safe to have full access, it is safe to have leftovers in this particular instance. So that way nobody can shoot across all 4 lanes. You're limited to just the 2 lanes that you are crossing. Once McCrimmon is fully built out, the issue that you have now is you have 2 lanes that suddenly become 1 lane, and then you have a railroad crossing track. With this design here, it actually has a grade separation, so some of the problems with the signals, with the number of lanes is resolved. But in the meantime, the leftover is needed, so if there is an emergency, that emergency services have more than 1 way to get in, but yet it's helping to limit the impact there. It's ultimately when it's built out, the issue that you experience in the morning, and I see it every morning as well, won't be there anymore with the design. So it's still going to be an interim pain, if you will, but ultimately it will be fine, and it is a safe design, and it's needed really from public safety access.
Okay. 2 more questions quickly. At that intersection of Town Hall Roy, I suppose there will be crosswalks, like we do in other places, because there will be people who would want to walk over to the school, right, or some other places. Is that something that the town would do, or is that something we would ask the developers to do?
There's actually existing ped head signals
Those are
there
right now.
already, so that would remain in place.
And the road section at that intersection, the McCrimmon road section at the intersection with Town Hall Drive is to its full width.
Okay.
It's simply, as you travel east is where you start seeing the necking down of the lane. So as you can see here, there are existing crosswalks to Courtney's point. We are providing the ADA receiving ramps, curb and gutter, and there will likely be some milling and overlay out into the street. And the portion of crosswalk that may or may not be torn up with that milling and overlay operation will absolutely be replaced. But as you can see, we're not proposing a true new crosswalk because there is an existing crosswalk.
Last question.
I would say if you look at the plans, everything that you see in yellow would be new pavement. Everything in orange is existing.
Last question. You probably have this covered, but just to get on record. Are you going to put in some kind of a barrier on the McCrimmon side? Basically a fencing around, because you have got homes which are at the ground level, right? Is there going to be any kind of fencing around it, or is it just going to be looking out onto McCrimmon Park? or McLean Drive?
Yeah, the street yard buffer that's proposed there is the option that does not include a fence or wall, but it does include shade trees, understory trees, and shrubs.
So until they grow up, the people who are basically they will be looking out on Town Hall Drive. On McLean Drive.
Well, and we're hoping that that landscaping that's being planted, it is a tremendous amount, more than we typically do, that will alleviate some of that stress that you see from the windows, seeing the cars drive by. But I understand. I agree.
So it's growing up. It will be growing into it probably for 6 to 12 months. Apartments are being built, at least growing a little bit.
Yeah.
Sanjay?
Now, the only thing is, I don't know if you have spoken to the residents of the townhomes which are across from you, and are they aware of your project and what that might do to impact them? And have you reached out to them, if at all? If not, that may be something you may want to do, just in good faith, so they are aware of what's coming and can accordingly, if nothing else, brace for it, right?
Sure, and we spoke to them very, very early on before they were really established as they are now. So yes, I agree. I think it's a good move to talk to them.
Thank you.
Catherine, you have another one. Go ahead.
Because it's in apartments, are the internal site roads going to be private?
Yes.
Okay.
That's okay. One of our challenges in Morrisville is traffic, and we talk mostly about the two-dimensional traffic, that's the roads, but we also have the third dimension. We have a lot of air traffic. And I think your development kind of borders the third level of 55 to 60, and I think you're just on the border of the 65 dB weighted. Are you going to do anything special about noise dampening or acoustical insulation?
Nothing above what we normally do. We will have insulation in the roofs, and we will have acoustomat and insulation between each floor. So on each floor, we're required by code to put, I think it's about 1.25 inches of like a foam pad, and then a couple inches of what's called gypcrete. So it's just a very viscous concrete. So that will help some of the sound. So the person on the first level should not hear, rather the fourth level should not have any issue with the planes.
Okay.
Well, the person on the first level shouldn't, but the person on the fourth level
Should not as well.
Okay. Are you going to go standard double pane windows? Are you going to upgrade just a smidge? Because my standard double pane aren't quite. I live up Town Hall Drive here, so I can tell you all you want about airplane noise. But I think it's a valid question. Just living a little bit further back, not quite enough maybe. And my building's 16 years old, so it's a whole nother story. With newer technology and better materials.
With any luck, Delta will have finally retired their MD-80s, which are the older, noisier planes by the time you're building. But I've been hoping for that for 5 or 6 years now. That's another reason, Rob, why we couldn't have an 80-story building. Yeah, right. Because
I don't mind 80 feet. 80 stories might be much for
right. So are we all done with questioning these good people? Ready to make a motion?
We've run them through the ringer.
And what are we deciding? Recommendation is administrative approval, right? So
Correct.
She does.
But I don't get to make motions. But there's a reason why I don't make them.
So you can either recommend approval as submitted, recommend approval with conditions, perhaps some of those that staff has recommended, or if there's additional conditions you're recommending that are based on UDO requirements, or recommend denial if those UDO requirements are not met.
So we can only recommend denial if we think.
I didn't see anything that was out of
Unless there's additional conditions or some on here that you don't think are good, that you'd want to modify.
But it has to be pertaining to the UDO, though.
Correct.
Yeah, so.
No, you can make a motion with conditions, and after the fact, you've done this in the past, add a note that you would like them to consider something along those lines. Y'all have done that in the past.
I would certainly like some sort of commitment regarding the Greenway access or something, but
Yeah.
I mean, I
don't know how that would work exactly.
If we could word something around, prior to construction of the buildings, having the Greenway reopened for public access and maintain that public access for the construction project. I don't know that there's a definite threat that will not be there based on the explanations we received, but that's not part of the end. So I guess my question is that something that's appropriate to ask for in this session?
I think you can ask them to make a consideration of that rather than ask it to be a requirement of the approval.
Staff will always tell us what we can and cannot do.
We're already kind of like indicated we'd like to see that, but
our job is to make a recommendation, and in my view, we can recommend whatever we like. So,
In the Greenway, so just looking at the phasing lines, most all of the internal driveway network and a fair amount of the parking is all included in phase one, and building one's included in phase one, and it looks like the Greenway is actually also included in phase one. The portion of the Greenway north of the parking lot. Now, the portion of the Greenway south of the parking lot's phase two, but at that point you may have the sidewalk coming up Town Hall Drive that can connect in. So I think it is very possible that you would have at least a portion of it reopened before the CO is in place, the way their phasing plan is.
I agree it looks possible, but I guess the question is, when you get into it and your construction trailer's on the west side, and maybe you also have a desire or maybe just an inclination to put a bunch of longer-term storage items over there as well, and you've got forklifts coming through that area because you didn't plan it otherwise, there may be some sort of safety requirements put on the construction that it has to be closed off. And that's, I think that's what we're trying to get at, is how can we influence that to get it opened up as soon as possible instead of being closed for a year and a half?
And they will have a pre-construction meeting with the engineering department before work begins. So, if you'd like to make a supplemental motion, that is something that you'd like to see, we could make sure that that's on engineering's radar when that pre-construction meeting is held as well.
And if they're amenable to this concern, we can work with them even prior to going to the town council to look at ways to address this so that we can get the Greenway open as soon as possible. And when it is open, then it remains safe.
I mean, especially,
It's twofold.
Underlining.
It's twofold. We want the safety, but we also want to open.
Right, and then I think the third issue is how the Greenway crosses McCrimmon is not efficient. And people tend to cross, but that's another issue that has to get settled. Is
yeah,
how
but that's a separate issue.
That's a town issue.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
But I don't think it's unreasonable for us to at least have a sit down and have a conversation on how to evaluate basically the phasing of the Greenway. I'm just kind of staring at it, and I have a couple of ideas. There's going to be a period where a portion would have to be closed down.
Yeah.
But the way they've set up their phasing, there may be ways to keep certain things in play or access. So it's not down for a year and a half. It's maybe down for a shorter period of time. But certainly, there's also cost efficiencies in having all your asphalt poured at the same time. And so we need to recognize that as well. But from where I sit, I certainly would be committed to sitting down with them and talking and trying to come up with some good solution that works for all.
Yeah.
We would agree to that as well.
So with staff and development agreement to do that and expedite that reopening as much as possible.
Yeah, that's
Make a
good.
motion. Approve recommendation as is, with the considerations documented. So there's something that we do officially.
All that.
Why don't you just take a look at the staff recommendations one more time?
I think you can just reference those.
Yeah, you don't necessarily need to read these word for word. You could say that you're making a recommendation of the resolution title with the recommendations made by staff. And if there's any additional things you want to add on to that, you can.
So I motion that we recommend approval of the Broadstone Trailside 2018-409-0. Approving the major site plan for Broadstone Trailside. We referenced staff recommendations and the commitment to the Greenway expedition. Sound good enough?
Sure about expedition, but I'm
Expediting?
right.
Sorry.
Prioritization, maybe.
Prioritization, there you go.
So we have a motion, basically, conditions as implemented, and the Greenway to be prioritized. Motion, do I have a second?
Yes, sir.
Discussion of the motion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank you, Carrie. We've reached the magic 8 o'clock, but I think we should keep going if everybody's comfortable. Item 10B, which is the meeting schedule for next year.
Yes, so we have the proposed meeting schedule for the 2019 year. And my apologies for pretending that y'all could see that, because I certainly can't. All of the dates, with the exception of October, are proposed as the second Thursday of the month. We are lucky enough to have the member of the, well, more than one member of the executive committee at the APANC. And so we talked to them and asked when the new conference was for October, and realized that the conference is actually running at the same time as the Planning and Zoning Board meeting next month. So we're proposing two dates, October 3rd, which is the first, and October 17th was the third. For us, the third has its advantages from the standpoint that we can still get our items together to the council meeting in a reasonable amount of time, have the meeting minutes prepared. Flip side of that, 17th is probably a better option for the developers, because we're shaving off a week on their ability to get stuff to us to meet that meeting. But then it's kind of more of an impact on staff then on getting the packet information together for council. So part of us would be recommending the third, but really we're leaving it up to council, up to the Planning and Zoning Board to make the decision of which one they prefer.
How do those match into the council meetings?
The council meeting is going to be on the 22nd,
Right.
right?
So the council meetings for October are the 8th and the 22nd, and the November date is the 12th. And keep in mind that we are sometimes running projects from kind of the meeting in October to the second meeting in October. There's been a couple of those this year. It's not the norm, they're more of the exception. But really, it's 100% up to the board what you would like to decide.
Which is easiest for you again?
For us, the more time that we have between the Planning and Zoning Board and the Town Council meeting date, the better, because we can prepare minutes. It's harder for us to prepare minutes as we start to squeeze out down that time, but it's not impossible.
It looks like 5 days between both sets, though.
Correct. If we went to, most likely, if we had either the 3rd or the 17th, it would be the first meeting in November. So, I mean, either way, I didn't know if anybody knew they had a vacation planned for the October 17th, and that would be bad, and we could defer to the 3rd or vice versa.
As of today, I don't have any plans. So.
I wish I had a vacation plan.
Yeah, October, I'm fine with whatever works better for the staff.
Yeah, whatever works better for planning.
Ultimately, you guys have the
You
harder,
guys.
yeah, you guys have the harder work of getting package over to the council. So we'll leave it up to
One
you.
thing right before you go to the meeting, but you may not want to have to come back to think, and you might use this one more.
Yeah, I mean, we would be preparing packets at the conference, most likely, if we had it for the 17th.
And we should have it on the 3rd, because you should not be trying to prepare packets, forgive me for speaking out of turn, but in my humble opinion, you should not be trying to put together packets while you are at a conference trying to learn more about your profession.
I would go ahead and move that we approve it with October 3rd. How about that?
Yeah.
Have a second for that? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
There you go.
Is that Valentine's Day we have on all that?
Well,
Are you sentimental?
I'm
Well, it's-
always spending it with the ones that I love. Yeah.
So you now have a wonderful excuse not to take her out to dinner that night.
Just go, not to join the crowds. You can do it the day after.
It's been in with the Board of Adjustment this year, so.
We can have the dinner here.
Sit in the crowd and watch.
Exactly.
What better way to spend Valentine's?
Your spouses can listen to you.
For a change.
He listens to you.
Okay, next one.
Item 11.
Okay, so the next item is our monthly newsletter. So Be Safe Storage, it's actually a storage facility combined with commercial, has been submitted. It's the old Expedex site. They will be converting that to commercial / mini storage.
Wow, that does not seem like anything close to the highest and best use of that land.
It's zoned industrial management.
Yeah, but from a million years ago.
It's just by back way of history, so it was proposed, actually left with the Planning and Zoning Board with a recommendation for
Apartments.
it was actually for an activity, the activity center district in the area. So that's actually what the recommendation from staff as well as the Planning and Zoning Board was as part of the entire UDO update, was to rezone it to the activity center. And right when it was going through the council process, the property owner, who was Expedex at the time, requested council to leave it as industrial management. Council granted that. There were several parcels along there. As you remember, there were several rezonings along Morrisville Parkway, all of which were approved by council with the exception of this particular parcel. It was for multifamily specifically. Castro wanted to expand their multifamily. It was denied. We honestly never spoke to anybody else after that happened until Be Safe Storage came along. So I've seen the drawings. It's actually going to be very attractive. At least the schematic I quickly looked at, it's not, I think it's a blue building, metal building now. It's being reskinned. So I think it'll be a very attractive addition compared to what we have out there. But again, it's industrial management, and that's really what they were confined to developing it as, since they were not successful in rezoning it.
I'm not sure the plans are up on the development or not, but
I mean,
if you want to take a look at them, it's
how
kind
many
of a unique
pages?
concept.
Well, the one thing I've always had with the development map is that a lot of those things only have one page, and it isn't always that helpful to be able to find out what's actually going to happen.
It's designed to be our temporary page until Intergov comes online, and you're going to get a lot of additional information because it is GIS based. But yes, due to the size of some of our files, we do put limitations on here. It's not pulling up.
Oh, it's the existing building.
The Expedex building.
Yeah, I mean, I thought they were going to tear the building down and put it, but no, they're using.
No, they are going to rehab. So that's the existing building. Just kind of benchmark. Here's your entrance into Park West. Here is Morrisville Parkway. The existing building here, this portion is primarily the money storage, and then they're going to face it with some.
All right, so like I'm a random Morrisville resident, and I say, hey, what's going on there? This doesn't really tell me. Right? It doesn't show me elevations. It doesn't show me what's actually going to happen there. Well, I understand that, but the plans, I mean, it's pretty typical with all of ours. We've got the very top sheet, like a lot of times.
It should have included the elevation sheet in there. So
I mean, it's something that's happened a lot. I mean, yeah.
Who works on adding those? It should include both the site plan and the elevation sheet. Clearly, it's not in there. Sorry about that, but no, it should include both. And then for town council approvals, they did approve both those zoning map cleanups that Natalie brought to the board. And they also approved a memorandum of understanding for the Myers Point development. As you may or may not remember, when their project was approved, it was approved for the entire installation of all utilities along their frontage. When they applied for Duke to do the conversion, Duke said the only way it could convert and meet their policies, they needed a 1,500-foot span. And so that took 500 feet of the installation off-site. So the MOU is really setting forth the understanding that the town will cover the off-site portion. They're going to cover the on-site portion so they can build theirs, and then we'll fund the difference to ensure that our policy of undergrounding is being met, and then we're not overly burdening a developer by requiring off-site improvements. Michelle's working on that. We have a meeting set up later this month to really start moving forward on that item. As for some other news, the public hearing for the land use plan amendment related to the multifamily has been continued to January. So I'm just going to put there as a kind of a quick update. You may or may not seen some of the social media posts out there regarding Morrisville rocks. There are rocks hidden throughout our greenways in our park system. So if you happen to take one and you are so inclined to take a picture with the rock and post it on social media, Instagram, Facebook, you can do that.
I've seen people randomly commenting on how cool the rocks were, actually.
Did you? I've read a couple of comments for what I could see.
Like they didn't know what it was. They're like, "Wow, these rocks are so cool. Thank you."
So yeah. So we just keep posting them, and then people can really start installing them. It's certainly not a unique idea. It's happening all over the country, but we're just trying to think of different ways to get families out together with their kids, walking the greenways, hitting the parks, and adding something new and different to what our existing amenities are.
A lot of the credit for that goes to Carrie, who at Spring Fest was out there with the kids, and they were painting. And if you have a chance, she put together a cute little YouTube video, too.
Yeah, Carrie and her actual sister, they spent a lot of time painting rocks. And there were some painted, they started some, they were painting some at Spring Fest, and they kind of did some other things, too. And then there's just a lot of talent and cute. I mean, the rocks are really cute, some of the ways they were developed. And then some of the artists in town did some really nice ones. Can't say that would be me. I have an odd white stick figure probably on mine. But they're really cute, and it's a great idea. So I am really proud of the current planning division for all their work they put into it, Carrie spearheaded it, but really, all kudos goes to all of them, and to Stephanie for helping to get out the video and disseminate that through all our different social media accounts. Kind of another thing is the land use plan. As we talked about earlier tonight, how do you learn, from what worked and what didn't work with previous plan updates? For the land use plan, we've taken a different approach. So the first approach for kind of round one was we held a meeting here, which, if we were lucky, had maybe 20 attendants, and we held some in different places, had great feedback when we went out to Springfest. So that was kind of, and some other events around that time frame. So that was round one. Currently, round two is underway, and that's honing in, if you remember your last time, going in those different sections of what you like, what works, what doesn't work, and what are some opportunities. So we're going to all the HOAs now. We're actually going to Preston Point and getting some information, getting feedback from those residents as well. We went to East Meets West and had a fair amount of participation there, as well as Trunk or Treat. So we're taking the approach of, again, going out, since those are our most successful, but we're hitting different events than we did for the first round. We're getting ready to start our third round of public input. I know second's still continuing on, but we're already planning for the third one. And the third one is going to go into 3 specific sub-areas, and we've actually, based off all the feedback, added a third sub-area. Our initial plans were to have very specific, detailed, almost small area plans incorporated into the master plan, or the overall plan, specific to the McCrimmon extension and the Wake Tech area. There's 2 very large areas of town with a lot of vacant land that are ripe for redevelopment, and we were honing in on that. Well, during the process, there was a lot of comments related to essential gathering place. Who are we? What's in our town center? And that really triggered to us that we needed to have a third sub-area. So the town center plan was in effect from 2007. And really, if you look at what the DFI plans are, there's some inconsistencies with that. If you look at the library, there's some inconsistencies with the plan. And so we need to go back in and create an updated town center. So take what we already had and build on what the people of today in Morrisville want, in addition to what they decided they thought was best for the town center in 2007. So we're going to build on that and get additional information, and hopefully that will help then generate more development within the town center that's consistent with regulations. And the regulations can be rewritten as well as necessary, so we're not having to do AEC processes like we had to do for the library. So that was the third one. So the next, we are actually going to have a visioning session here at Town Hall, and tentatively scheduled for December 6th. We're working on securing all those dates. We just have to get our contract signed to get them flying back out here, because it's actually an additional trip outside of our original scope of work. They'll come here, and there'll be opportunities. We will be sending out mailers to anybody that has property in the sub-areas, but then we'll asking everybody who wants to attend. So it's just, we sent out a couple of mailers already, but this one's going to be targeted mailers specifically at the residents that live there, but then inviting everybody through social media and other outlets to come to this visioning workshop. And it will really start to allow them then to develop these little small area plans based off of taking what we have, modifying it since it is an update, because there's also the McCrimmon extension guidance. And the Wake Tech was slightly covered in the TOD plan, so building on that and refining it. So that's really the next phase. The results will be available ultimately probably late winter, early spring, but we're going to have the process of input tentatively scheduled for December 6th if you want to pencil that in to your calendars. That's where we stand on those couple of items. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them regarding those.
I was just going to make a comment, right? I was recently at a event which TJ was also on as a sir. One of the things, quite a few of the high schoolers who were there were asking is, how could we get involved into some of these planning sessions? Because they feel, we are all thinking about the town more in old terms, if you will. right, and not taking into account what is the need of these younger people for the town, right? So what I'm trying to say is maybe as you plan for your third phase, I don't know what is the best way, but maybe find ways to get the high schoolers, especially the ones who are juniors, 10th graders, juniors. They may have some ideas that we perhaps have not even thought about, right? And if nothing else, have an hour session to see what they come up with. Good or bad, at least we'll have some of their thoughts in.
In our first round, we actually targeted one of it's this youth council that they have here. It was the largest group. When we targeted specific groups, there's 50 plus kids. That is the largest youth turnout since I've been here of any type of public feedback. So we did target them round one for that very reason. And it was us going to them, finding out where they were, because I have
that's the only way it will work
with their schedules that they're going to come to us.
Yeah, that's the only way it's going to work.
Now there is a survey out there now that they can all go fill out, and and it's asking the same questions. Start the same exercise you did. It's the same thing that they're doing there, so they can provide their feedback that way as well. So if anybody knows of any blast groups, we've reached out to high schools in the past and asked, would you disseminate? And the answer is no, they won't.
One way to do this is perhaps for Stephanie to put the link to the survey on the various town social medias like Facebook, Twitter, etc. And parents like us can take that and distribute it, to a larger audience. Right? I mean, yes, you can't perhaps put it in there, but I can certainly put it into the parent group or the high school group that I am part of, right? So at least get the message across in that terms.
That's great. I mean, I think at last check we had around 100 survey responses. So, I know just working with Teen Morrisville 101, historically, I'm probably guilty of this too. It's an extension, your electronics, so finding a way to quickly have them kind of respond and participate is the way to go. And again, we have found for Morrisville, asking people to come to us is a very, very low effective rate.
Yeah.
It's us going to the people. Challenge is that only happens 2 times a year, basically. You can target kind of in the spring, and you can target heavily in the fall. There's some opportunities in the summer, not a lot, and there are really no opportunities in winter. So that's where we're going to go back to some of the traditional outreach methods for the sub areas, and just have this one limited sub area kind of work or visioning session to have people attend. But yeah, I can definitely talk to Brad to have her work with Stephanie to see if we can't create some targeted, are you a high school student? If so, go here. We're still sending them to the same exact link, but we're messaging it differently.
Right.
That's a great idea.
We can also put posters up right now we don't have our own library, but we can put one at the West Cary Library and say, hey, here is the information, go pick it up, right? You can put one near the movie theater, right? These are the areas where lots of these youth collect, and as long as we make them easy enough for them to just take a snap of the cue card and launch the website or wherever they need to go, they can go put in their feedback.
Especially if we tie a QR code to it that's going to carry where you are. All those little things. Okay, great. That was a great idea. Thank you. I don't have any additional comments other than to say Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you, Courtney. So, board comments. Catherine.
Next meeting, or next month's meeting is the second Thursday in December?
Yes.
Okay. Just want to make sure.
No, it is the same, and to be warned, it will probably be a very long one.
Okay.
My unfortunate end of the year holiday gift to each of you.
Arlene.
Just Peter wanted me to mention the proclamation which TJ made at the town council recognizing October as Community Planning Month. He read this proclamation, as you guys all know. Sanjay and I were there, the planning department was there, and he gave us accolades for our work. It was very nice.
Thank you for being there and doing that. Rob, any comments?
Nope. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody.
I'd like to thank the planning staff for the dinner this evening, and I know you jumped through many hoops. Thank you, Marty.
Thank you, Marty.
Thank you very much. I think that was a nice session. We should do that every month.
We could do potluck.
Maybe. So I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion.
Have a second.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you.